Denethor had known the oily, yellowish-grey clouds above Mordor all his life, but now that oppressive fume was spreading. It hung like a poisonous roof over the dark lands, as constant as the very walls of the White Tower of Ecthelion, ever a reminder of the threat that lay on his borders. And ever was that fume a reminder of his own failings as the latest in a long line of caretakers. The stewards of Gondor were become guards, march wardens to keep the evils of Mordor behind their own walls. Above all, the fume accused him of his failing his beloved Finduilas. Denethor pressed his lips together, breathed in. The heady perfume of incense filled his nostrils. Noble and lordly they called him, wise, strong-willed, far-sighted. The people had marveled at his foreseeing of Sauron's assault on Osgiliath. But each night for the last 18 years, Denethor had stood at the highest window in his city and watched the shadow of Mordor lengthen. And in desperation, he had opened the box that every ruling steward since Mardil knew lay hidden in the darkest corner of the archives of Gondor. Proud and strong-willed, the people called him. It was sheer will that meant that he had not succumbed to the despair that had taken Finduilas. And the power it gave him to touch the ancient stone of Numenor and to see the country of Gondor laid out like a map before him. Tidings from remote Anfalas and Pinath Gelin were suddenly at his fingertips. What news from Losanach? What was Prince Imrahil of Dol Amroth not telling him? He knew full well that not all of the Palantiri were accounted for. He knew that the Ithil stone had almost certainly been captured by the enemy over 1,000 years ago, and the oppressor had bided his time, waiting with the patience of a spider for someone to touch one of the surviving stones. Strong-willed, the people called him.
I swear that no harm will come to you,
he had once promised her,
as long as I live.
Sauron ever tried to bend Denethor's will to his own, but he did not know the mind of Gondor's caretaker. When Sauron's long fingers probed his thoughts, searching for any little betrayal, any snippet that he could use, all he found was a strongbox of purest mithril, sealed and lidless, a chest to house all the secrets of his mind. But the box was hard in its making, and the effort of will had made Denethor old before his years. Soon, the map of Gondor was a trifle. Now the stone gazed upon the east, through rock and fume. Denethor had long since abandoned any trust of his allies, bar the captains of the Outlands. And while he listened gladly with young ears to their counsel, his eyes were now old and blind to all save the dark visions of the Palantir. Above the fume, the first stars of the east were starting to appear. The clouds flickered with lightning. Far below, in the lower circles of the city, the faintest sound of music and laughter rose up from one of the taverns. But he did not look down. He rubbed his chest, hoping to alleviate an itch under the mail shirt that he wore beneath his robes. He broke his gaze away from the fume and turned towards the shadow of the chamber. Denethor pushed back his lank grey hair. He always felt strange trepidation before using the Palantir. Perhaps doubt was one of the few of his adversary's weapons that had had any effect over the years. It was the first time since the ruin of Osgiliath that he had come to the Chamber of Light. Now, more than ever before, he longed to look into Sauron's mind, to know his thoughts, the machinations behind the eye. The chamber had been built to house the Anor Stone, and among the people of the upper circles of the city, it was an open secret that there was where it lay. But for the granite pedestal in the middle of the floor, it was empty. The 4 windows looked blindly out onto each of the cardinal points. The last glow of dusk provided the chamber its only dim light. His eyes now adjusted. Denethor pulled back the deep blue velvet shroud and looked at the swirling midst of the crystal globe. What magicians were the ancient elves? The Noldor who made the Palantiri were indeed greater than all the wizards combined. He liked to look through the eastern window before he touched the stone, as though his failing eyes might anchor the visions of his mind in the banalities of reality. He raised his hand and spread his quivering fingers over the stone. As always, the energy, the life of the Palantir made his palm tingle, and the swirling amber light deep within reacted to his closeness. He lowered his hand and felt the cool, smooth surface of the crystal. There was the usual momentary disorientation, and then he was there. It was never the same attendant. Sometimes an orc, at others, a troll. But whatever slave of Mordor he used was as ignorant of his presence as a weed is to a resting fly. Denethor merely borrowed their eyes for a few moments. He had tried many times to enter the mind of his adversary directly, but if Denethor had a strongbox, Sauron's mind was locked within a doorless chamber. It was only by crouching at the back of some minion's mind that Denethor could watch and listen. Sauron, as always, was sitting on his great obsidian throne, his gauntlet-shod hands resting on the high arms. He was shrouded in his heavy robes, and even though the dark hood obscured his face, he seemed to be staring into space. But Denethor had no doubt that his sight was everywhere at once, his knowledge growing from moment to moment. Denethor ignored the other attendees. Over the years, he had learned that for the most part, they were generals and other high-ranking officers who no doubt felt it a great honor to be granted access to their lord's throne room. They were there only to receive orders. None had brought tidings to that throne for hundreds of years. The great eye was ever watchful, a sleepless malice, gazing unblinkingly into the minds of his slaves. Presently, Sauron raised his head, but none of the dim red light of the chamber reached his face. He slowly turned his head towards the orc, whose eyes Denethor had hidden behind. In his mind, he crouched even further, hoping to hide in the shadows, away from that malevolent awareness. Denethor could sense the slave fidgeting with discomfort, and then a growing fear. It seemed to him that the oppressor had been staring at the orc for an hour and more. Denethor's vessel started to back away from the throne, but Sauron's shrouded gaze followed it across the chamber. The orc's fear turned to terror as Sauron lifted his huge, enrobed arm and pointed at the orc. But he was pointing at Denethor. He tried to leap from the orc's mind, but his hand was stuck to the stone. A loud, baleful screaming flooded his mind, his entire being. Still, Sauron pointed at him. The orc was rooted to the floor of the chamber, immobile with terror, and Denethor shared it. The screaming was becoming deafening as he felt the black steel gauntlets grasping at his awareness, trying to tear open his mind as though peeling an onion. Denethor quivered and shook, trying to free his hand from the Palantir. The box of purest mithril was being prized open by those immeasurably strong fingers. There was a flash of light, not blinding like sunlight, but a bluish grey, a light behind his eyes only.
Imladris, Isildur, Halfling.
The words had been ripped from Denethor's awareness. He opened his eyes and saw the chamber of light, dark and real all around him. Only now could he feel the grip on his hand yield. He yanked his arm away from the crystal globe, and the vision of Sauron's throne room was gone. He moaned as a great force pushed sharply at his chest, throwing him back from the pedestal. He slid across the chamber floor and stopped, dazed near the top of the stair. For a long while he stared, whimpering at the high vaulted ceiling.
Boromir,
He whispered.